is Jalen Rose.
What up, dawg?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
Together, we are Jalen and Jacoby. What do?
We get the people what they want.
Huge breaking news in the world of sports today. But for listeners and watchers of Jalen and Jacoby, it's not that. It's broken news.
To everyone else, it's breaking news. To Jalen and Jacoby listeners, it's broken news.
Well, a long time ago, into this very microphone, in this very studio, you spoke about Anthony Davis's future. Let's take a listen.
New Orleans, open your ears. Get used to watching Anthony Davis play basketball in your uniform, because this will be the last season he does so. I know everybody saw the news about him joining Clutch Sports over the past couple of days. I am predicting that Anthony Davis ends up in Los Angeles with LeBron James.
So, the news this morning, through his agent, Rich Paul, who also happens to, be a close friend of LeBron James, Anthony Davis announces that he does not want to play for the Pelicans. He's not going to sign an extension, and he has officially requested a trade. Jalen, there's so much to discuss here. What was your first reaction when you heard this?
No surprise, just because this is what I do for a living, and I already understood that this was going to take place. It was just a matter of when. I'll give you guys the actual reason why it's happening right now.
Why is it happening right now?
A couple of things. The Lakers have a 10-day window to get a deal done. When the Boston Celtics cannot negotiate with the Pelicans based on the Derrick Rose rule, can't add a maximum guy that you've already traded for like they did with Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
So in order for them to acquire a deal for AD right now, that would mean trading Kyrie right now, which they're not going to do, or waiting to July 1st. So now, when you're the Lakers, the reason why we're only talking about those two teams, and I'm really sensitive about national media always acting like they want to force players to the storied franchise or to the large market, is because of the assets available. When the Paul George deal happened, Victor Oladipo wasn't an all-star yet. Sabonis wasn't an all-star yet. He was in the final year of his contract. OKC was rolling the dice. When the DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard deal happened, Kawhi's in the last year of his deal. DeMar has a couple of years left on his contract. Toronto's rolling the dice. No team is going to trade for Anthony Davis, who's considered a game-changing franchise player, and give up their second best player. Because you're clearly not giving up your first best player. So now it's like, who has the assets to get this done? Who has the wealth of young talent? Lakers. Who has the wealth of young talent and the draft picks? Celtics. In order to get a guy next to LeBron James in LA.
I mean, there are other teams that could put together a package, but those teams are not the type of teams that Anthony Davis wants to sign with and extend. So then you're giving up everything to not have Anthony Davis.
Well, but here's what makes this tricky. Boston can fall into that category as well. He could tell the Celtics, do not trade for me because I'm not going to re-sign.
But that doesn't mean he won't end up in the green.
This gets back to my point of why the timing is right now. The timing right now is I'm a player, career highs in points, career highs in rebounds, career highs in assists, career highs in steals. We're not in the playoffs, and obviously that's on the best player. I'm not going to let him off the hook in this era of, you can't win as the best player. Now you want to go run with somebody else, which is fine. But the second thing is, now I'm not starting in the All-Star game. I'm taking steps back. Y'all messing with my money. I want to get out of here.
So I know we talk about LeBron all the time, but we have to talk about LeBron's role in this because there are some things that happen. He's signed with Clutch Sports. All right, fine, we get it. But then when the Pelicans go to play in Los Angeles against the Lakers, what happens after that game? LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they don't just have dinner together. They have dinner together at a restaurant, knowing that everyone's going to find out about it. Then there's this announcement on a Monday morning, 10 days before the trade deadline, when it's time to get the deal done. This all feels like LeBron and Rich Paul and Clutch Sports telling the rest of the league that Anthony Davis wants to play in Los Angeles.
So also, And I'm one of the people as well that enjoyed the era of the 80s and the 90s where I had the remote control in my hand and all-stars were spread throughout the league. Now, with LeBron James as the best player, no blame of his, he's been a unique combination of successful dominant player and powerful businessman and industry guy that moves the needle.
In and outside of basketball.
Correct. So when he's the first guy as an MVP, Moses did it in the early 80s, playing in his prime, that jumps from Cleveland because I don't think, even though I'm the best player, I can win here. And he goes to Miami to team up with Wade to get some of that championship mojo that Pat Riley had fostered in Miami. That was the changing of the guard in the league. So Kevin Durant can say, I know I play with Russ, but I'm leading the league in scoring 4 times, and people saying, when you gonna get a championship? I need to go join the 73 ring Warriors.
What's wrong with this, Jalen? Like, you sound like he's the old get off my lawn guy. I like the old stuff when everybody hates each other. I don't like the new stuff where everyone joins together.
I just don't like to see my favorite players exchanging jerseys on the floor unless they're Dwayne Wade in the final year of his Hall of Fame career.
Stop it. Jalen, you need to change that.
I remember there were times when I got along with former teammates on opposing teams. I got along with guys that I went to school with, friends in the league. You know what happened when my team lost? I walked to the locker room. I got your phone number. I don't have to hug and kiss you on the court right now.
So bring it back to Anthony Davis.
Correct. That's why I'm bringing it back to Anthony Davis, because it's my responsibility as somebody that works in the media and is a former player that's acknowledging that he goes from being the best player on a playoff team to acknowledging that he can't be the best player on a championship team.
That's a fair assessment, though. No one's talking about the Pelicans being contenders for a championship. You add AD to the Lakers, you're talking about them being a championship.
Okay.
So now, you're Dell Demps, who may or may not be taking these phone calls, who knows, but you're Dell Demps. The Lakers call. They say, what do you want? What does Dell Demps answer?
I can't do it, homie. It can't be done. So I'm going to tell you how to do it. You ready?
Okay.
No pump faking. No playing around. If I'm the Lakers and I call you, yeah, you got to take KCP because that helps make the money work.
Yep.
And by the way, he just so happens to be a Rich Paul client.
Oh, that's interesting.
But the Lakers gave $18 million, as a lot of people believe is an olive branch pre-LeBron, and he's getting $12 million this year. So if I'm rich, hey, KCP, I got you to LA, 2 years, $30 million.
KCP's going to get a dinner invite. It's going to be LeBron and Rich Paul at the table, and it's going to be bad news.
But I took care of you. I got you $30 million to play basketball on a lottery team in Los Angeles 2 years in a row. So that was your chance to play your value up. So beyond KCP, here's the only way you get the deal done. I need Kuzma.
Okay.
I need Ball.
Okay.
I need Ingram. And I need either Zubac or Wagner. I need 5 players. I don't care about the Lakers draft picks when they have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Because they're going to be late first round.
Yeah.
I don't want that. You give me those 5 cats, you can come get him right now. Not 3 of the 5, not 4 of the 5. Because if you pump faking and you don't want to give me all 5, cool. I'll wait till July when Boston can now be in play.
See, that's the thing that people need to understand is Boston can trade for Anthony Davis on July 1st. So if you are the Pelicans, you're not necessarily motivated to get this done in the next 10 days. You can wait it out. Tell Rich Paul, hey, man, we didn't get an offer that we liked. He's still going to be in the Pelicans the rest of this year. That's what's going to happen. And then in the offseason, you have 2 teams that have a lot of young players and assets bidding against each other. Because when you're not bidding against anybody else, it's hard to have the negotiation. But when the Pelicans get on the phone and say, all right, Lakers, well, you didn't want to put Ball in the deal. Well, guess what? The Celtics are putting all their picks in the deal. The Celtics are putting Jason Tatum in the deal. And you can bid the value up. What do you think the chances are that happens? Do you think this deal gets done in the next 10 days?
No.
Or over the summer?
No.
You do not think it gets done in the next 10 days?
No. Because Anthony Davis is a unique player in the fact that he hasn't, in my opinion, necessarily plateaued at a prime. He's still skyrocketing and getting better because we haven't necessarily seen him consistently in the playoffs and on the championship contending level. So there's upside there. And it's too many moving parts. I'm talking about moving 5 players in 10 days. It can get done, but I'm just saying if I'm the Pelicans, I think about this. The Lakers' young assets that I just named, if you were drafting and or playing on the playground and I had the 8 young players, 4 from Boston, Tatum, Brown, Rozier, Smart, that'd be what it took to get the deal done, right?
Rozier's deal ends up this summer, right?
Correct. So that'd be a sign and trade situation. With that being said, if you were drafting a squad, who would you put as the best player of those 8? Jason Tatum? What about number 2?
Who's?
Number 3?
Brown. Ingram or Brown?
Right. Number 3, Ingram or Brown.
Do you know what's not helping any of this? Ball being hurt and Brown and Tatum not playing well.
Correct.
That's not helping any of this if you're one of those teams.
That's why that exercise is important. Because when you talk about trading a guy like Anthony Davis, who's top 3 in a lot of the major statistical categories, you got to look at your fan base and say, it was for the greater good. They've lost Chris Paul. They've lost DeMarcus Cousins by no fault of their own. He had an Achilles injury, and now they possibly lose Anthony Davis. I need to now look at my fans and look at my roster and say, we don't have AD, but man, we won in this deal. I got y'all 5 players. Now all of a sudden we in business.
The Celtics have a lot of lottery picks this year. A lot of lottery picks. And do you know when you're explaining something to your fan base, people love the potential of a lottery pick a lot more than they like the actual picks. You know what I mean? Like, they love the potential of like, oh, we got 3 picks from the Celtics. And then when you see the players that come back, they're like, we traded Anthony Davis for who?
That's why I always say, this is one of my terms, picks don't play. Because you can have the picks, but who's actually drafting is going to make the quality decision to build and craft a roster. This is fascinating news for the NBA.
This is big news for the NBA. There's so much more to discuss on it, which we will get into. What does this mean for Luke Walton? There's some things about him. And what has Rich Paul texted Jalen Rose today? Coming to you live from Pier 17, the Seaport District of Manhattan, and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose. Huge news in the NBA. Although, is it really huge news? Like, we all kind of knew it was going to happen. All we've talked about all year long is where Anthony Davis is going to be traded to. Is he going to join LeBron and the Lakers? But now it's official. Rich Paul has announced that Anthony Davis will not be signing an extension to New Orleans and has requested a trade. So in the next 10 days, for reasons we explained, it seems like the Lakers are one of the only suitors. And you, in the last segment, said to give up Ball, Ingram, Kuzma, Wagner, everybody to make it happen. So let's say that you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the Lakers, and then you've got what? McGee, Stevenson, Beasley, Rondo. You remember they've got all those one-year guys. What does that team look like?
Who is your MVP of basketball that's in the league at all times every year?
Lance Stevenson.
He's on the team.
I know, he looked great last night, too.
How about that? So just think about this. This is a relationship business in crafting a team that you think may function well. And I'm about to put some pieces on the chessboard that's going to make you say, Where did Rondo play last year?
New Orleans Pelicans.
Correct. A guy that just signed with the Golden State Warriors for a 1-year deal, $5 million. His name is DeMarcus Cousins. Where did he play last year?
New Orleans Pelicans.
Correct.
Huh.
So this is a power play. If you're going to oppose the Golden State Warriors, you got to come correct. And the 2019 class is so very deep. As long as I look at my roster and I have AD and I have LeBron, they're going to be free agents that want to come play with us.
Yep.
I'm going to be able to trade for veterans and productive players to come run with us. They're going to be buyout candidates that want to come play with us. So you won't have a hard time building out your roster if you had those 2 guys in uniform.
And all of the people I mentioned, Beasley, Stevenson, Rondo, they all have 1-year deals. They all come off. And if you've traded all of that young core, you basically have like Zubac, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James and a bunch of cap space, and you've got Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka filling that out. Like, I do believe that they should sell out to try to get this deal done in the next 10 days. Because if they don't get it done in the next 10 days, then they're going to be bidding against Boston, so they're going to end up giving up more than they would unless they get it done the next 10 days.
And that's what makes this tricky for everybody that hears this story, because in theory, yes, come July, they'll be bidding against the rest of the league, including Boston. But Anthony Davis can now tell those teams he won't resign. And the reason why I personally do this distinction, as the person that's spoken to this very microphone and said Kawhi Leonard was unhappy with the Spurs months before it took place, is that now you figure, will there be other teams willing to roll the dice anyway? Like happened for Kawhi Leonard, still final year of his deal.
Yep.
Paul George, who stayed with OKC. And the distinction I always bring up, and Jimmy Butler comes to mind right now, is great players, they don't want to play for 3 teams in 3 years. That's a lot of moving around. And so I knew when Paul George got there, and I said that, he's going to get comfortable, he's going to find his way. He ain't going to want to be up and rooting his family for 3 straight years, playing for 3 straight teams. Kawhi may want to do it. Paul George didn't do it. So now you're rolling the dice on Anthony Davis. He is the kind of player that's actually worth taking that opportunity.
So here's an angle that no one's really talking about. The owner of the Pelicans passed, Tom Benson, and Gail Benson, his wife, is sort of like the owner. And then there's Dell Demps, who's the general manager of the Pelicans. But people have been whispering about Dell Demps and his job security for a long time. Mickey Loomis, who's the general manager of the Saints, also has a role with the Pelicans. So the question is really like, who's on the phone doing the deals for the Pelicans right now?
This is also an uncomfortable space for the team.
It really is.
This is why you're going to lose your best player. The dynamics of what you just talked about. The level of structure isn't normal.
You look at the Lakers, you've got Jeannie Buss, you've got Magic Johnson, you got Rob Pelinka, you got LeBron James, and then Luke Walton. That's how this works. But if you look at the Pelicans, there's no clear business structure like that.
And based on those dynamics is why that makes this deal a lot more tricky to get done if you don't get a slam dunk offer. Because now, if they're talking about 2 of the players I named, or 3 of the players I named.
But the 2021 pick is also in there. That's
Correct.
a good draft class based on the ninth graders right now.
That's why if you're the Lakers, you can't pump fake. You got to come correct. Because if you start pump faking, then you got too many people that can waffle about the decision, and guess what happens after 10 days? No deal gets done.
It's interesting. I mean, that's one of the more interesting angles to all of this that no one's really talking about. And then there's another angle. There's the Luke Walton thing. Now, even before this announcement was made, our homegirl, Jackie McMullen, went onto the Hoop Collective podcast talking with frequent guest of the show, Brian Windhorst, and had something interesting to say about Luke Walton's job security.
She gave him the power to make those kind of decisions. It's clear to me, and probably to you, Brian, that LeBron's camp would prefer a coaching change. They're not too subtle about that.
Of course, LeBron publicly hasn't talked in a month.
No, not
publicly,
LeBron, but all the people around
That's
LeBron.
right.
There's plenty of them, and they've made it known. I don't think this is a shock, is it, for me to say this?
Well, LeBron has not said anything publicly disparaging Luke Walton or his job security, but Jackie McMullen, a very trusted voice in the NBA, saying that people around LeBron, I've sort of whispered to her about that. Now that all of this is on the table, whether Anthony Davis is on the team this season or there's a deal made for Anthony Davis in the offseason, how does that affect Luke Walton?
For Jalen and Jacoby supporters, I'm going to ask you a question that is going to yield a redundant answer. How many years did I tell you that Luke Walton would coach LeBron James?
1 season.
That hasn't changed. This will be the only season that he coaches that team.
Training camp next year in El Segundo or wherever, is Luke Walton going to be with the Lakers?
Luke Walton should be getting another job because he's done a terrific job in L.A.
And in Golden State.
And also, here's what can't get lost, because so many times people want to immediately dismiss the job of a coach. Luke Walton got paid top dollar by the Lakers. He came in, he developed all of those young guys. I see Zubac playing well. I saw Randall playing well. They just let him walk for nothing. I see flashes in Ball, Kuzma, Ingram. I see Hart. You know what that is, right? That's coaching and developing. So I will never act like he ain't doing a good job because he actually is. So to me, if you make that change, you're getting somebody that not only you, but the rest of the world feels like it's a no-brainer that he's quote unquote better than Luke. So that would mean if you gave Luke $35 million,
the money's a factor.
You about to turn around and give somebody else $50 million? Is that where we going here?
For a deal that's longer than LeBron's?
And who is that person?
Ty Lue.
And so that's what fascinates me about this. It's still mind-boggling for me personally that Mark Jackson doesn't have a coaching job in the NBA, as his fingerprints were all over the development of the Golden State Warriors. And there are guys that are already out there. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
It's very interesting. And again, like, there is no name that pops up into my head that's a guaranteed no-brainer to replace Luke Walton. Like Brian Shaw, like Ty Lue. I'm just thinking of people that wore the purple and gold. You know, Phil Jackson. Like, who's coming out of the woodwork
All
to
I
take
know
this
is
job?
this. We've talked about that on this show. I pay close attention to everything, and I talk to people. And it's clear when LeBron James comes out of the lineup, what did I tell you he does? Who did I tell you he talks to?
When he comes out of the lineup?
He's not talking to Luke Walton. Who's he talking to on the bench? Brian Shaw. So therefore, you don't fire Luke Walton and pay him $7 million a year not to coach. And you don't go pay somebody else $50 million.
When David Blatt was fired, who replaced him?
The assistant on the staff.
And when LeBron James came out of the game for the Cavs, would he talk to
Tyronn Lue.
Interesting. Are you going to tell us what Rich Paul has texted you today?
Rich Paul texted me, good morning.
Oh, okay. Just exchanging pleasantries?
No doubt about it. And he texted me, did you hear that my guy, Anthony Davis?
I knew you wouldn't tell us. I knew you wouldn't tell us. When we come back, we'll continue to break down this big news in the NBA, and we will look at the Lakers' assets and make the deal right here. NBA on ESPN. On Wednesday night, we have the Pacers traveling to Washington to take on the Wizards. After that, Jazz and the Trailblazers in the Western Conference. Big game on Saturday in prime time. LeBron James will be playing against the Warriors. We all know what happened on Christmas. I think there'll be some discussion about Anthony Davis in that as well. And every morning, get up with the Get Up crew and Jalen Rose. They'll be talking about Zion and everything else in sports every morning at 8 a.m. on ESPN. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Again, big news in the NBA. It is now official. Anthony Davis, through his agent Rich Paul, has officially requested a trade. The Celtics, for league rule reasons, cannot trade for him until July 1st, which makes the Lakers the leaders in the clubhouse to do so. So now let's really break this down. Let's take a look at what assets the Lakers have that they could put in a deal. Now, most importantly is the $12 million that KCP is making. So $12 million in KCP. In addition to these, what do you think makes this work, Jalen Rose?
5 total players. That graphic represents exactly what I said earlier today, except Josh Hart. It'll sub out Josh Hart and add KCP.
And that's the trade?
The deal.
That's a lot. Do you think they start the negotiation with that?
Yeah, I'm not playing around. Because if I'm New Orleans, he is a top flight player. There will be a team that emerges and says, I'll take him for a short-term rental. That's going to eventually happen if it gets to the offseason. During the season, I don't see a team now saying, I'm going to trade my second best player for Anthony Davis, because that doesn't necessarily make me a contender, and it doesn't help me long term.
Let me just do the media thing and throw a couple things out there for you very quickly. CJ McCollum, Nurkic, and a pick.
That's my point. So now all of a sudden, if you're the Lakers, you don't get the deal done. Remember,
he doesn't listen to stuff like that.
He doesn't control his destiny right now. Like Paul George didn't control his destiny.
Kristaps Porzingis and the Knicks' #1 pick.
Voicemail.
Kristaps Porzingis and the Knicks' #1 pick?
Oh, he's been injured the entire season. And the #1 pick, while I love Zion and the potential of RJ Barrett, I love Ja Morant, I don't think you give up one of those, you get those guys, and it equals giving up Anthony Davis.
So here's another question for you. This is also very interesting. Let's say they make the trade. Whether it's in the offseason or whether it's before the trade deadline, the Lakers put all their young players out, maybe even add a pick, and they have Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and these guys, these older veterans, on a one-year deal. They also have enough room to sign another superstar. This is a big free agency class coming up this summer. So it's not just LeBron and AD and a bunch of miscellaneous parts. They could add another superstar. Who could you see realistically joining this tandem in Los Angeles?
So here's how this goes. Once I have LeBron, to me, there are only a couple of people I could pair with him to even put them in conversation to compete against the Warriors. They are Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard. That's it.
What do you mean?
That's it. That means if it ain't one of those three players alongside LeBron, you can have 2 or 3 more free agents come.
Of course.
It's not going to equal competition.
But now I'm saying under a hypothetical scenario in which they already have AD and LeBron.
Correct.
So what supplemental star could compete with the Warriors?
There you go. Now that I got 2 all-NBA cats that could rival KD and Steph, MVP cats, now it's building out the roster. What about a Kemba Walker?
Wait, who's he rep by?
For a nondescript team currently leading them in Charlotte for the last couple of years. Jeff Swartz is his agent. And so this what makes it more interesting, the fact that once you have AD, the willingness of players to come, and also veteran buyouts, also veterans taking less to come be a part of it. All of those dynamics are going to play, just like when LeBron turned to Cleveland, how they built out their roster, and before you knew it, it was a bunch of people that found a way from Miami to Cleveland, whether on the floor or sitting on the behind the bench or on the coaching staff.
Klay Thompson's not leaving Golden State.
No.
You
don't leave nowhere where you get 60 points and 19 dribbles.
Could Boogie Cousins join Anthony Davis and LeBron James?
That's why I brought that up earlier.
The purple and gold?
This is so if you're gonna come at the Warriors, you gotta come correct.
Of course.
And so if I got LeBron and AD, now I'm on the phone with Boogie. I'm on the phone with Kemba Walker. Because based on what Boogie makes now, he ain't gonna be able to get a max deal. See, a lot of people don't realize that. You only can do a certain level of escalation from year to year on a salary. So you can pay Kemba the max, and you could give Boogie a pedestrian deal.
Well, his production, because of the roster that he is playing with, is not going to be such where he can sit in office and demand a max deal.
Well, depending on the team, he can, but not in this situation because he won't need to. He can still go and run with those guys, play his value up more 1 or 2 years, and then go somewhere else and get top dollar. That's what guys are doing now. That's what the league is now.
I love it.
But I have to acknowledge, and it's not the worst thing ever. It's not the worst thing ever. It also is an acknowledgement that as a all-NBA player, as a superstar, you couldn't lead us as the best player to championship glory. That's all that admits.
And that's fine.
And that's fine.
Something tells me Kevin Durant sleeps very well at night knowing that. Something tells me that doesn't bother him. Well, I'm going to do the media thing and just acknowledge that even the media thing took this story too far. Over the weekend, Kawhi Leonard purchased a house in San Diego. A very nice house. $13.3 million. Look at that pool. Bigger than Kanye's.
Get it?
Now, obviously, the media said, oh, he bought a house in Southern California. That means he's definitely going to the Clippers or he's definitely going to the Lakers. But here's the thing. That house that we're looking at right now with that nice theater and all that, it is 111 miles away from Los Angeles. 111 miles from Los Angeles. Does this mean anything to you about where he plays next season?
Well, first and foremost, I already said it. If he's leaving Toronto, he's going to the Clippers.
Okay.
This house has nothing to do with that. But what he could do, he could easily get enough money to buy him an apartment in LA.
Something tells me that he could get a nice rental in Los Angeles.
So like the Toronto thing was a great experiment for them because the Casey and DeRozan experience had gone as far as they felt it could. So if he does leave, now that opens up salary for them to rebuild their roster. They knew what they were getting into. Here's
something that's happened that's been completely overshadowed. There was a great game between two championship contenders in the National Basketball Association on Saturday night in primetime on ABC three-letter network. The Warriors and the Celtics in Boston, toe-to-toe, exchanging blows. Great game. Kyrie went off. Steph and KD led their team. But there's an interesting thing to come out of this game. There was an anonymous Warrior who had this to say about your guy, Gordon Hayward. Quote, from the stadium, I talked to a Warriors player who told me, listen, Gordon Hayward is not Gordon Hayward right now. He's hurting them. He's a liability on both ends of the court. Jalen Rose, you've been in the huddle. You've been part of the offensive and defensive strategies, and you know if you think that someone's a liability, you can exploit that to win a basketball game. This is your guy. You love Gordon Hayward. You've been talking about him for years. Is this anonymous Warriors player correct?
Yes.
He is.
And the one thing about it is I did not need this Warrior player to say it. Look no further than the fact they paid him a maximum deal. Mm-hmm. He started the year in the lineup as it was being introduced at the beginning of the game. Then he quickly became a reserve. Also, look at his productivity. It's not there. On the defensive end, he was never a guy you consider a lockdown defender. He is an effort player and a team defender.
It was a liability, though.
But what makes you a liability is we got all of these assets, but they're stuck with one. Him. Of all of the players on the team, that's the one. He's like the one fixed variable on their roster, and he's not performing. But look no further than Paul George in the season that he's having to say that this might not be the Gordon Hayward that we have moving forward. Absolutely. It takes him a year or so to get back together.
Of course. Coming up next on Jalen and Jacoby, because of the Anthony Davis news, we haven't even gotten to the fact that Chris Paul is back with the Rockets and James Harden is on a historic scoring streak. We'll break it all down after this. Coming to you live from the South Street Seaport Pier 17 and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, so much news about Anthony Davis. That's big news in the NBA has been overshadowed. Last night, while getting waxed by the Magic, the Rockets were at home getting beat by the Magic. They were down double digits in the fourth quarter. You'll never believe this. The Rockets came back to win the game. James Harden extended his historic winning streak to another game. How has he changed his game as teams have adjusted the way they defend him?
So there's a couple of things that have happened in this dynamic of analytics. And the Houston Rockets, led by James Harden and Daryl Morey, and now Mike D'Antoni as their head coach, have championed the fact that we want our team to shoot threes, shoot free throws, shoot layups and dunks. I remember in the offseason when they had Carmelo Anthony and he shot a long two, it was jokes. Mm-hmm. He looked to the sideline and was like, my bad.
And he made it, too.
A couple of years ago when they were playing against the Spurs in the playoffs, what they did was they suffocated the three-point line. Mm-hmm. They exaggerated James's left hand, and they forced him to the help, where they could have somebody at the rim contest or block the shot. You know why? He wasn't playing mid-range. Now you see him playing mid-range.
He does.
They're doing dribble handoffs to get him to his left hand, turning down the middle, and you can tell he's not used to shooting his runner or floater because it still looks unorthodox and a little uncomfortable.
Yep.
Even though he made a couple in the previous game, that's the difference. He's making multiple buckets that are mid-range shots now. That's unlocked his offense, which is what has allowed him to put up even bigger numbers.
And to seal the game last night against the Magic, he did something, is the step-back three we talk about all the time. We talk about his step-back three, blah, blah, blah. But now, when you're going to the hole, he steps back to a mid-range. Because when he's already going downhill, you're chasing alongside of him as a defender. You're thinking he's going to the rim. Got to keep him from going to the rim. Don't foul him. And then he just stops on a dime, and he sealed the game against the Magic last night with a nice little, 14-foot wide-open jump shot on a step-back. It was brilliant. Now, there's another big game that was overshadowed last night. The Thunder in Oklahoma City hosted the Bucks. This was a great game, and it was capped off by this dunk and Paul George's fourth quarter heroics. Paul George has not just seen himself return to form. He's now legitimately on the outskirts of the MVP conversation, and he, not Russell Westbrook, is the person who makes all the clutch shots in the fourth quarter. Jalen, what has the resurgence of Paul George shown you?
That Russell Westbrook has grown as a player. When he performed next to KD and his field goal percentage was a little higher, though KD led the league in scoring 4 times, Russell led the league in Russell led the team in shot attempts. And it was validated because they were both compatible at putting up big numbers. I want to say they were the first duo to score 50 and 40 in the same game. Like, they were outstanding lifting that team together, and I wanted to see them play together for a long time. Now you come into this season when you're shooting around 30% or below from 3, and Paul George has been lights out scoring the basketball. Russ can still play his floor game and average his triple-double, but at the same time acquiesce to the fact that when there's a big shot out of a timeout, it's going to Paul George. And now that that dynamic was figured out this season, it's giving Paul George confidence to actually go out there and be like, an MVP is giving me the ball? So now he feels that elite level of pressure that you welcome, that, oh, I got to step up. I got to perform. And so now he's able to do that with a great supporting cast surrounding him. This is why I've said all season, there are going to be people that jump on the bandwagon now, and it's fine. The only 2 teams in the West, as they're currently constructed, so I know we're still moving pieces on the chessboard, that can force the Golden State Warriors to a long series are OKC and Houston. Kenneth Faried was a terrific pickup. A little big man is going to catch lobs for Houston and play defense. But OKC, they blocked 7
shots
of the Greek Freak shots. Why? They have multiple players that can switch and they have length. That's what I like about what they've done by building their roster.
And there's a couple things I want to say. Number one is people always talk about PG and Westbrook and that duo and whose team is this. I think that conversation is silly to me. What people forget is the Thunder play defense at one of the best teams in the league at playing defense. And Robinson's going to come back. And he's one of their best wing defenders. Like, it's the defense, this team, that carries them, not necessarily, because we have Westbrook and PG, a duo in the game.
See, and I'm here to teach. The reason why I say those 2 teams in particular is because they have 2 all-stars, each of them, and they have a big that's going to make Boogie and or Draymond work in Adams and Capella.
And not just Adams, is Grant's been playing great this year, and Nerlens Noel has been playing great this year as well, especially in the defensive end. Like, I love this Thunder team, and people need to see that it's not just PG.
Ferguson has improved. He's knocking down shots.
Rose,
Grant catches lobs.
When we come back, we've discovered a video that is the secret to your hairline and your hair. I'm going to accuse you of something that you're not ready for right after this. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose. I saw a video on my telephone this morning that blew my mind, and it made me think about you. So whenever we have to really break down a video, it's time for you and I to go to the table. Look at this man getting this done to his hair. Okay? Now, what are you thinking right now? What are the thoughts in your head? Wave caps going on? It looks terrible at this point, right? Like, he had that glued to his head like a carpet. Now we get the shape up. And now we get to the little Beijing sprayed on there. And you gotta see the results. It looked great. Jalen Rose, did we just discover why your hairline looks so good?
Not at all, because for public consumption, between being a McDonald's All-American in high school, where you can see my hair and how I rock my cut, parts in my head and whatnot, at the University of Michigan, before I cut it bald, it clearly preserved the opportunity now for me to be almost 46 on Wednesday and still have my hair in my hairline.
Can we just take a look at the video again? Because it really evolves. Like, when it starts, I'm just looking at it like, they're just gluing hair to this man's head. It goes down to his eyes. It just looks terrible at this point. Then a little blow dry, a little trim, and throw the wave cap on there.
Anybody that knows me would know first, I ain't the dude that's about to let somebody glue anything to my head.
Yeah.
I take what's happening on top of my head serious because I have brains in there, okay? So I would rather have a bald head than glue on top of it.
And again, like, you can look at this and say, that's ridiculous. This isn't fair. Like, his hairline looks so good. But there's a lot of women out there with some extensions. It's no different. And the results looked good. They really did look good.
The results look great, but it didn't make me feel like, in X amount of years, if I needed some support, would I do that?
No.
I'll let everybody know right now. Soon as there becomes a crack in this Liberty Bell, I'm going bald. So don't even worry about it.
Well, there's so much talk today.
Can I say one more thing about hair?
Sure.
Because I want to make sure I say this on wax. Because I like to be first and foremost authority of industry tastemaking. I'm liking a fad that I'm seeing taking place in the NBA.
I know what you're talking about.
Players wearing braids looking like they're fresh out.
Oh, like Brandon Ingram?
There are multiple players. Brandon Ingram, Marcus Smart, James Johnson, Josh Richardson.
I was just looking at that, like, that must take a long time.
There are multiple players that are rocking that look, and I just want to give them a salute because I ain't mad at it.
Very quickly, there's so much talk about Anthony Davis and LeBron James teaming up on the Lakers, but there's something that's being overlooked in all of this. Lance Stevenson. Last night, I stayed up and watched Lance. Look at that. Spin around, Lance. Why don't you just spin around again? And then pass to JaVale. JaVale, he ruined that shot. But Lance went off last night. Oh, fake, nope, dime. Like, Lance had 17 points in 22 minutes. LeBron James might sit out a few more games just to get his time. Because he was strumming the guitar like he was Willie Nelson last night. Look at him out there.
I must say this, and I don't want to be the guy that's busting his arm to pat himself on the back, but when I hear Jay-Z say World Wide West on a Drake record, I do smile. When I hear so many people now saying Lance make him dance, just know where it came from.
Just know where it came from. And remember where the Anthony Davis news first came from. We'll be back tomorrow with much more on this big news in the NBA.
Be back.